All right, Guru Nation, how's it going? Very excited that on my other channel, the Clinical Research Circle, we just interviewed the CEO of ChemPharm. This company is always so popular amongst the social media crowd. It's always a slam dunk as far as views go. So I decided, why not take a little more time, react to this video? Because here's the thing, when I'm doing the interview, sometimes I don't fully, and this is probably how I like why one of the biggest things I probably have to improve. And this was a group interview, so it was even harder. Usually I go one on one, but because it was on the Clinical Research Circle, I brought some of my colleagues on. I don't always have time to process what the guest just said, right? I'm thinking about my next question. And I know like great interviewers, they're good at doing both. And I'm trying to get there, but I'm watching this again for the first time on my own because number one, I want to see and hear different context of what he said. And number two, I'm going to pause it frequently and give you my thoughts and opinions on it. So with that being said, I'm going to share the video again from the Clinical Research Circle. Let's go maximize. Let's maximize this thing and let's get right into it. Clinical Research Circlers, how to share like
This is great. This is a lot better than anything I've been on in the past, including Vyvanse.
really?
Okay, yeah, shut
here,
down offices again.
Are you guys taking, so you don't have to answer things you're not. So here I asked him, this is where I wanted to start. I asked him straight off the bat, okay, are you taking, because he said before he and his kids have ADHD. So are you and the kids taking it? And his answer, I knew it was going to be a good question. Shout out to the stock twits for bringing this one up. And the answer is pretty good. Let me know what you think in the comments. Comfortable answering. But since we last spoke, like, we have Azstarys now, and people want to know if you want to share, like, you've shared in the past, you yourself, your children have ADHD. Are you guys taking Azstarys?
I have started, and I know that once kind of the things return a little bit normal, I've heard child psychs will start to, adopt it more. Okay. I think here in Florida, we had the whole Delta variant with COVID, which kind of re-shut down offices again a little bit. And so none of them want to change medication unless it's really bad. But, mine was easy. I just tell them, hey, I know this thing works better. And so luckily, though, I'm the family guinea pig, and I can tell everybody, yeah, this is great. This is a lot better than anything I've been on in the past, including Vyvanse.
Really? So I respect that. I respect that answer. When you have kids, you don't just switch their meds. You can do that to your own meds if you want, but your kids, you should have physicians look into it, right? And not push for that just because you're the CEO of ChemPharm and you guys have Azstarys. I would assume his kids are eventually going to get on it, but Travis is doing it the right way with the doctor's approval. On his side, he even said it's easier for him because he's willing to risk it on himself rather than his kids. So good answer.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, let's talk about COVID, because that's actually something I didn't think of. But you know how we're doing the focused rollouts, which is a strategy most drug companies use. I mean, you guys partner with Corium on this. So certain markets, right? You're just hitting like certain markets. You're doing like test case until we can get more markets on board. Has COVID like slowed down the rollout because of what you just said? Like, televisits. I know because I work with doctors too, and they're trying to do a lot of their visits remotely now as well. So how has that been a challenge, if it has been?
Well, we've heard from Corium that they've had their challenges. I mean, a lot of the focus has been in states like Texas and Florida, which were the epicenters for the Delta variant and a lot of the issues that happened alongside that. But what's nice is, as you're doing this rollout, you're also learning how to best, get into, to meet with physicians, to get their time outside of the office, which is kind of a new strategy, and I think very clever. I know other companies have implemented something similar, but I believe Corium's doing a good job of really planning for success as opposed to worrying about what's going on this very second.
Corium, who's the sales group he partnered with, is planning for success rather than worried about short-term outcomes. That's a good thing to say. I should have followed up here with how satisfied he is with Corium. I think I did kind of bring that up a little bit, trying to get him to answer questions. And Travis is pretty good at not avoiding questions anyways, and he'll let you know when he's not comfortable answering a question or just can't answer a question. But the focused rollout was something that the investors felt, this was never brought up beforehand, but when you look at it, this is a common practice amongst drug companies. They all do focused rollouts. It's just when you're a small market cap like ChemPharm, you've got a bunch of magnifying lenses on you and you've never done a rollout before. So this is new for a bunch of investors. You guys, even the seasoned investors, you guys got to get educated. And in this interview, we actually bring up a company, Neurocrine, which I'm very interested in, as I was very interested in it as well. I was a stockholder 10 years ago. I actually did studies with them for some of my sites. So it seems like Travis following the blueprint for those companies. And interestingly enough, those companies, Neurocrine has its own sales force now, but they didn't start out that way either. And as far as Corium is concerned, like one of the questions I kept getting from the community is, do they have some kind of metrics that you guys follow when it comes to, like, do you have milestone expectations and how accountability? I'm trying to ask in the community with sourcing these questions. How do we hold Corium accountable for their sales, and how much, I guess, how micromanaging are you going to get is the crux of the question. How they perform versus what your expectations are.
In the early days, no. I mean, that's first 6 months, every payer is going to block this. You're going to have some high deductible plans that'll cover it, but that'll change at the beginning of the year, right, when folks have a deductible again. So this first few months will always be very low script volume. I think we've seen 60 or 70 a week, but it's trending up.
60 or 70 a week, but trending up. So not too bad. Not too bad.
What we want to see is adoption, continued use. Doctors continue to write scripts, and good clinical feedback. We want to hear doctors say, hey, this is working for my patients. I want to give it to more patients. It's not, when they tell us it's not in the pharmacy or I'm having formulary issues, that's a good sign. That means, we can fix those things, but the doctor really wants to have it in there and use it for his patients. So that's everything that I have heard that I can pass along, because it's, I think it's fairly standard, but at the same time, it's very encouraging.
Yeah, this is actually a topic that comes up. I wish we would have had Dr. Azstarys, our oncologist, on here, because when we cover biotechs, we're always talking about, okay, when the drug's approved, doctors want to prescribe it. Insurance companies going to block it until they figure out what this is. But the doctors they get a form, I think it's like authorization form or something. And this comes up a lot on the clinical research circle with Dr. Azstarys. So insurance companies call and say, hey, why are we switching from this generic to this brand name expensive new drug? And so they initially deny it, and then they send the doctor a request. So the doctor's office does like an authorization form where they fill out, rationale as to why the doctor believes this is the right fit for the patient, and then they have no choice but to approve it at that point. The staff has to fill it out. Most offices have full-time people doing this, as long as they're providing rationale why they're using this over the others. So have you seen that? Like, are you hearing feedback from doctors about this kind of stuff?
Actually, that's not terribly problematic. It's usually when a patient encounters difficulty, like my plan doesn't cover any of it, I have to pay $100. Those sort of issues. prior authorizations, as you mentioned, are ADHD is a lifelong diagnosis. So
Yeah, what we're really after is the Medicare, because private insurance, they can charge, they can not have it on their formulary or have it, but Medicare, that has to be covered once it's FDA approved. But and I'm not sure how that works, but I'm sure Medicare also follows the same process and contacts the doctor and says, hey, well, why are you switching to this brand name? It's very expensive. But I think ultimately they have to cover it because the doctor's prescribing it.
So every insurer knows, well, if I can stop one or two of these, that's going to save me some money. And so they put in as many blocks for every medication. And, Corium knew that going in. Everybody who launches in the last 20 years has known that, it's going to get some resistance. But, docs are used to this for every new patient.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel about the launch so far? And then Monica, we'll get to you right now, and then Chris. But so far, the launch compared to your expectations, how do you feel about it?
I think it's going as planned. I mean, I'm just passing along what Corium's telling us. I've seen some good feedback. WebMD has provided some user reviews. Folks that have had scripts provided reviews on their utilization. And it's very positive. I think surprisingly, some of the feedback is around weight loss and appetite, which we knew in our clinical studies we were seeing kind of an improvement there. But hearing it from patients where, I wasn't eating before, or Johnny wasn't eating before, and now they don't have a problem, that's a big deal, because that's the number one issue with all of these stimulant medications. And that could be a real driver here in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, that could be a game changer. He brings up a really good point.
Now that you're mentioning the patients, is there any feedback that you can share from patients and prescribers post launch this medication?
Besides what I just said, I think what some of the feedback has been that it does work throughout the day. It works well. Parents, it's a caregiver setting in one instance, but there's feedback that it worked early, and that's positive, because that's what we saw in our clinical studies. So there's no pushback from the clinical perspective, right? The data that physicians read and see is actually being demonstrated in their patients. So they're being very positive. I think the only negativity is what we always expected and what we see with payers, reimbursement, and the difficulty in prescribing.
Yeah, somebody put in the comments, because this payer thing, initially it's always an issue, whether it's Medicare, formulary, or private insurance, but eventually it gets sorted out. But somebody let me know the details. Does Medicare have to cover it if it's FDA approved, or can they reject it? Somebody let me know in the comments.
And is there enough supply for this kind of medication? Because we know that there are a lot of patients with this condition.
Great question by Monica. Underrated question. Look, supply chain is hurting every industry right now. So it's a really good question Monica just asked about, do we have enough supply of the drug, of Azstarys?
Is there enough supply for that?
As far as I know, I haven't heard of any supply issues. I couldn't tell you otherwise if it was confidential, but there has not been any reports of supply outages or lack of ability. I think with any sort of regional launch where you focused in a few areas, you're going to have to wait a day or so sometimes to get your script into that pharmacy. But I haven't heard of any issues, that has caused. And once it's there, then it'll be there for the next patient and so forth.
Chris, anything?
Sure.
You've been patiently waiting.
Sure. So I'm going off topic of these questions.
So Chris has had this topic. He got a lot of heat on the community for this question. They say, "Oh, it's a dumb question. How do you not know how dilution works?" Guys, there is no such thing as a dumb question. First of all, we understand the concept of dilution. We don't understand warrants. We don't understand necessarily the strategies and the nuances of why companies do what they do when they do it. This is where Chris was coming from. But Chris is very analytical, so he likes to boil things down to their most basic level. So that's why his question comes off as, I don't know, somebody who doesn't really know stocks. He does. He invests in stocks. He's invests in kmph actually, and he's just asking about the warrants. But this is also a sneaky way for him to get an answer from Travis on the future, any future dilution activities that ChemPharm may have on the agenda. And Travis squashed that right away. But let's get through this Chris Sauber question if you want.
Questions, just because I'm curious. So, and I can't remember the proper terminology necessarily, but many people are complaining that kmph dilutes their shares to raise capital. I don't know if that's termed.
And by the way, a lot of biotechs do this, not just kmph. And kmph did that, with the warrants early on to get them out of debt and to get them relisted back on NASDAQ. So that's what the warrants were all about. I think it was like 6 months ago.
Correctly. But do you have, well, one, how is that done? And why does it reduce the price of the shares?
Well, the term dilution is, you go out and raise more money by selling a percentage of the company, right?
Sure.
You say I'm going to sell X number of shares, which represents 5% of the company, 10% of the company, because I need more capital.
Right.
We tried to cover this as in detail as we could, and sometimes, we know what we know, but we don't convey exactly what we want to. On our last call, is there has been no additional dilution since the announcement of a warrant exchange. So there were some warrants that were from a series of transactions that relisted us on the NASDAQ, got rid of our debt, and then brought in some additional capital so that we could, do the things we want to do in the future. And since we took those original warrants and did an inducement where they would trade off a large number for a much smaller number, that's been the last set of dilution. And we put in place tools that we may need to do M&A, either one way or the other, to potentially do a fundraise. But these are not in our plans, and they're not something that we have any use for at the moment. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. So see, there we go. So Chris managed. Let's give Chris his roses while he's here. Chris managed to not only ask a question selfishly because he's trying to figure out, and who better to figure out about warrants and how to raise money than from a CEO of a publicly traded biotech where they do this kind of stuff all the time. But also he threw in there, like, almost required Travis to answer, well, to defend why they did that, because typically dilution is looked upon negatively from short-term investors and long-term investors too. And so he answered that, and he gave some guidance as to their future strategy. So there's full-time Wall Street analysts that can't get this information. But Chris comes through and in 2 minutes gets what the analysts can't. Give Chris his props. Stop the hate.
So just to follow up. So essentially, you're selling off more of the company when you release more shares, of course. Is there splits or anything like that? And those really don't dilute the share price, right?
No, that's just math. And again, we haven't done anything dilutive in the near term and don't have any plans to. So yeah, this share split is just, you had one share, right, now you have 6 shares, or you have 6 shares, you have 1 share, but the math is still the same. You still in at $6.50. That's
all right. And enough with the shares. Let's fast forward a little bit.
It's been our model since I started the company. We're not going to waste money. We're going to spend it on exactly what we need to do, not overblown super scientific studies that, would win you the Nobel Prize, but don't lead to a good product. We're going to focus on adding value to our pipeline of products So SDX and all the uses that possibly could be there. And then as well, things we have in the back, which we're evaluating, and things we don't have yet, things that we're also looking externally and saying, hey, there's some great opportunities out there in the CNS space. Let's go see if we can create some big value with those, give people milestones on a more regular basis, and really, take this to the next stage.
You see the milestones. He's talking about retail investors there. Let's focus on CNS. All right, let's give more milestones. Let's hyper focus. This is the Neurocrine model. Yeah, we'll get to because I do want to get to the SDX and beyond. There's a lot of questions, a lot of excitement from the community. We were talking beforehand. This is a passionate group of investors. We haven't seen anything like this. We've only been doing this for about a year, reviewing biotechs. But
I haven't.
Man, this is like there's so many people on Twitter, stock twits, jumping on this stock and long-term shareholders. So this is like Travis comes on here, gets to talk to you, answer some curated questions for me. We've witnessed recently the percentage of institutional ownership rise steadily. I think we're at close to 30%, if not more, institutional investor. How do you view this? Is it positive? And how important is that for continued growth in all the other things we're going to discuss now, namely SDX?
It is important. It's an important component to any healthcare institution. Honestly, every company in our stage, any company that wants to be the next big, I'd say Pfizer, but Neurocrine and Biohaven, these $9-8 billion companies. I mean, those are gold.
Biohaven's another one we covered on the clinical research circle. I actually got to look more into it. We wrote an article on that on Latinos in clinical research as well. Travis studies. Travis is a student of the game, and now he gets to be CEO, and he's been doing this for years now. Travis knows what he has a plan.
Right? We want to be a big boy someday. And so, we need good healthcare institutions behind us that are going to buy and keep their stock. They're not going to, not a hedge fund that's going to hedge against it with shorts and all sorts of, fun stuff. They're going to be holders, and then they're going to, like our previous holder, Deerfield, be very strategic. They brought us opportunities. They brought us deals.
CEOs hate the hedge fund shorts, as they should.
Us ideas, and they did market research, and a lot of these groups will do that. And then also it's kind of a gang, right? Once you get one or two more, and they just kind of pile in, and it's self-fulfilling for prophecy. They'll support the stock when it's down. They'll sing the praises when it's up, and that helps everybody.
And this is also what kmph, one of its strongest assets, is the social community that they've built. I've analyzed biotechs this past year. I go on StockTwits, Reddit. kmph is one of the most active communities out there, one of the most passionate diehards. That's a huge asset. I don't think enough biotech companies understand the importance of social investing now.
In that case.
Yeah, so Ken, I guess we can talk about SUD, substance use disorder, stimulant disorder. You guys have phase 1. You're waiting on data from that, or do you have the data for this, or are you waiting on it still?
We've been getting little pieces here and there. It's so the study itself is just a phase 1 PK study where we have some PD readings on, how do you feel? How do you feel about abuse? Is it make you high? Does it not? The standard parameters that you look for abuse liability, but also it tells you a little bit of how the product is making them feel at these doses. Now, these are doses above what we've studied before. So 240 milligrams was the top dose in our abuse studies. We started there, and we're going up to 600 milligrams. So we have little pieces along the way, but we don't have the full picture. So this population, these are stimulant addicted subjects. They know what they're doing as far as stimulant addiction. and they're not the most reliable subjects in the planet.
They're not, but the fact that they were allowed to do this on actual stimulant users, I don't know if their actual word would be abusers, but like he said, they're definitely headed down that path, as opposed to healthy volunteers, is huge. Because not only do you get the safety and maximum tolerated dose, but you get some efficacy data too. I don't think people understand, like, you have to be in clinical research to understand the importance of this. You're getting the safety and efficacy in the same study. It's a very pragmatic approach. Very cool that they got that approved by the FDA and the IRBs. Probably because there's a huge need for this public health, from a public health policy standpoint.
You'll get 2 or 3 that show up, and then the next time they don't, and then they never call back or follow up. It's actually been a nightmare, but we're getting some good data. Fourth quarter is when we plan to announce everything.
Boom. So fourth quarter. So that means between October, November, December, they're going to announce the data from that study. Again, they're going to have safety data. They're going to have efficacy data. I don't know if they're doing maximum tolerated dose, but they've already doubled. He said they doubled the dose. Okay.
But, in the interim, we are building, the case for how this is going to be developed into a product.
I've got way more questions on this, but Monica, Chris, anything here that you guys want to add? They had nothing, guys. I give you the chance, guys. Monica and Chris, I'm just kidding. They did a good job though with the questions when they did ask, and they're coming up more. We've got tons. So first of all, is this proof of concept study? Is it on? I think we discussed last time. Is it healthy volunteers, or it's actually on the indication for patients? Oh, see, he just answered this. This is me not being a good listener, right? Multitasking. He just answered it. But again, let's listen again, just to hear the context.
Because it required them to be, fairly sophisticated with stimulant use, we had to go with people that were not quite addicts, but well-experienced stimulant abusers.
Wow.
And so it's not the intended population where you're trying to take addicts and wean them off into something else. This is the population that at least starts that way. And so that's one of the difficulties we have with these studies.
So is this all amphetamines? Crack cocaine, all of it?
All stimulants, he meant. All of it, yeah. Any stimulant. The site that we use is in Salt Lake. So there is a lot of amphetamine, methylphenidates, stuff you can get legally, but used at much higher doses.
Yeah, and I actually tried to look up this study on clinicaltrials.gov, but I couldn't find it. So if somebody finds it, let me know. I went to clinicaltrials.gov and I just put ChemPharm, and all I found were the ADHD studies. But there's a study, a substance use disorder study, stimulant use disorder study going on. I always get those two things mixed up. It's stimulant use disorder study, not substance use, although the SDX platform will be for a wide range of things.
And snorted and injected. But other sites would be more cocaine or methamphetamine. So all 4 of those would qualify as drugs of choice for these stimulant addicts.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I know.
I can imagine how challenging it is to recruit patients for that study.
That'd be a very tough study. In the phase 2 and phase 3, we talked about this in the last interview. Like retention, when you do a clinical trial, retention is more important than recruitment. I think for a study like this, relatively easier. Yeah, relatively easy to recruit, but to retain somebody who's addicted to, meth, cocaine, crack, this is going to be challenging. Retention is always challenging. This is going to be challenging. Yes. I don't want to say impossible because nothing's impossible, but I'm sure you guys have a plan for this, right? You guys realize this is going to be very challenging studies.
Yeah, and I think that's why we talked about it. I talked about it on the last quarterly call with a little more ambiguity, because we see other opportunities as maybe first in line because they're a lot easier.
It makes so much sense. You know, people try to read between the lines a lot. One of the dangerous things about having such an active community is people start speculating a lot. They read between the lines. So just because he's ambiguous on a call about what the plan is going to be with this stimulant use disorder study, it's because they're still trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out, okay, well, we have limited resources. We don't want to dilute again. We need to see, okay, where's the lower hanging fruit? This is going to be a challenging study. This indication, it's not like you go to a restaurant and you just order like, hey, I want compliant stimulant use patients in my studies. It doesn't work like that. Which ones?
That the KP1077 is in our pipeline. It's also the pure prodrug SDX, and it's for idiopathic hypersomnia. Now, it's a rare disease, so, recruitment, but there's a patient registry, there's enough data to know where to go. And, you're not having issues with retention. We've seen some Jazz work. They just got a product approved where, they were able to keep folks in the study and get it done in a fairly concise amount of time. So that's why I wanted to be a little more vague because, we may still pursue that. There may be a route, but hey, if there's other opportunities that are just as big or maybe bigger, let's go after those first. And, do the ones, number one, that are going to be cheaper, faster, and lower risk. Because there's nothing approved for SUD, stimulant use disorder. So we have no precedent.
So just my opinion, but with the SUD studies, I would be recruiting from, I forget the name of the organization, but it's the sister to Alcoholics Anonymous. That's where I would go and recruit, right? People who are trying to quit.
Yeah, this recruiting. So we had a cocaine addiction study once, and it was tough. It was tough keeping the patients in the study. So Chris is absolutely right in regards to that. And I'm going to fast forward ahead here. I'm going to fast forward a little bit here when we get into some of the other products in the pipeline. So is there anything that you would like to say about this, like for the investors who are a little bit concerned about what's going on with this particular indication first?
Well, so what's interesting here is the dynamic between our license agreement with Granite Point Capital.
Okay, so this is one I asked him because in the past, Travis had indicated when the SUD data comes out from the phase 1/2 study, we're gonna talk about looking to license it out. So this is what I asked him about,
which is referred to in the public domain as ComAv. Also, they assign the commercialization rights to Corium. It's all the same thing to me. I just say GPC really is the group here we have a license with. They have a right of first negotiation after we complete this first study. So we don't have to wait till phase 2 or phase 3. We put together a data package of this, phase 1 study. They get 150 days. All of this is public. It's all out there about the agreement to evaluate it and decide if they want to do a license. And along the way, we'll negotiate economics, we'll negotiate terms, and then eventually, we'll reach an agreement during that time period, I would assume. And, that's what I was referring to about the license. They're obviously going to have some interest. This is CNS related. They got a CNS sales company that they're building, but at the same time, I can't guarantee they're going to do anything. That's up to them and how much they want to pay, whether it's enough for us to want to move forward with or not. All of those things are still TBD.
We get some clarity on there, guys. That was a good. Thank you to the StockTwits community for that question. Okay, yeah, it makes sense because it's very early in the process, but you know how investors are. They look for like events. They read between the lines a lot, but that's comes with the territory.
Develop a product for that, and I think there's a lot of different areas you could expand upon, and I think I've seen this with other companies too, right? They have one drug and they go after multiple indications. They know some of those aren't going to work, and some of them might be deprioritized over the others for commercial reasons. But, I just see they're just one after the other for opportunities here. Even beyond that, I mean, I could keep going if you want.
We will. Don't worry. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Monica, go ahead.
So you mentioned about the Alzheimer's, and there is some mentioning about Alzheimer's disease at ChemPharm. Could you please elaborate a little bit more on that side, since we know that you have a great scientific resource, Adam Smith, who had worked extensively in Alzheimer's disease. How do you make use of such a resource for your pipeline?
Great question by Monica. We actually got this question from several key investors in the community. Dan asks, so Senior Director of Research at ChemPharm is this guy named Adam Smith. He's a scientist, just like Travis Mickle. He's one of the principal inventors of a drug by the name Liprosal. And Liprosal, you can go on clinicaltrials.gov and search for it. Liprosal just entered into a phase 1 safety study. There's a company by the name of Alzheimer Neuro. I believe they just went public, penny stock. They have the license for Liprosal. They licensed it from the University of Southern Florida, where Adam Smith co-invented it. Now, Alzheimer looks like a potential, and this is where the rumor takes off, could be a good acquisition target, right? And I didn't want to interrupt Monica and interject Liprosal in here. I mean, that's for the reaction video. We got to have something exclusive for you guys, right? Behind the scenes. So here's the behind the scenes stuff. Is this something that ChemPharm might have some involvement with in the future, since Adam Smith was one of the inventors and he's a key employee at ChemPharm?
Well, I mean, it's great to have the team that we have, right? I've been working with some of these folks for more than 20 years. Adam has been a great addition with his expertise in Alzheimer's and co-crystals and some of the technology went behind the work done there at University of South Florida. We also have Andy Barrett, who came to us from Salix and Cephalon, as well as a Harvard postdoc. And clinical pharmacology has been his background, understanding all of the CNS diseases and how they interplay and where we could go in the future. So we're at a great crossroads. We have this great opportunity to take our scientific knowledge and now apply it to something that with SDX and the opportunities here just could be tremendous. So
you didn't allude to like an acquisition or anything like that. He alluded to the team and their brain, right? The intellectual property in their brain. So maybe they're thinking, okay, well, Adam Smith came up with Liprosal, and most Alzheimer's drugs don't get approved. I mean, it's like historic failure after failure. But they have the intellectual property in the head.
Alzheimer's is obvious because of Adam's background, but the narcolepsy, because of Andy's background, working at Cephalon on modafinil products. I mean, he knows this space. He knows all the experts. It's just been a nice transition from ADHD now into these other CNS diseases.
Yeah, no, and last time we were on, you even mentioned oncology, which we haven't heard before. Can you elaborate more on that?
I probably mentioned it just as a host of things to look at. I think we know what we're good at. And
yeah, see, I'll skip this part because he's basically said, look, last time I was giving you like ideas of how diverse our platform can be, but we're going to be focused right now. We're going to be hyper focused on CNS, central nervous system.
Azstarys and even further back in our pipeline of other opportunities. And folks, I've met with over the last 5, 6, 7, 10 years, now need something for their pipeline. They want to go fill a hole. They come to us now because they look, you've proven what you can do, and it's a great label. It could be potentially a great product. So some of those discussions around product specific, like a 1077 or 879, some of them are more technology specific, where, hey, we have a product we'd like you to look at, and see if you could help us with this. And then, of course, that'd be kind of a technology sort of partnership. And it's been along those lines. I just say it's more than we've ever had in the past. And I was very encouraged about that. And we'll continue to field those questions, and hopefully something comes out of that.
Yeah, he's talking about questions from other companies reaching out, partner to buy. What is he open to? So I guess I'm looking at a lot of these community generated questions, and the theme seems to be, okay, we understand from the last interview, Travis is very excited about the future potential of SDX and CNS as a whole, even stretching to Alzheimer's and, like you said, maybe even oncology, although your core competency is going to be CNS, and that makes a lot of sense, especially with the team that you've put together. I guess I'm trying to summarize everyone's question into one because there's tons of them. By the way, great job on the social media, guys. You guys doing really good. I guess the essence of the question, and I meant kmph, I don't know. I don't really follow their social media accounts. To be honest with you, I don't think it's anything special compared to the other ones, but they do have some kind of magic with the community, because on non-kmph accounts like StockTwits or Twitter, there's just a lot of people talking about this company all the time. Is everything on the table, or are you going to do this like on your own? For example, like an activated technology, would you ever consider like selling that, but just that, or are you like committed to just going at it on your own, like long term, very long term?
So I mean, that's a great question, and that goes back to I'm sure there's a few guys that are still around from the 15 years ago when we started this whole thing. I am, so that works out. But yeah, everything's always on the table. I mean, this is a business first and foremost. I have friends here I've worked with for a long time, but they also understand this is has value in pieces too. So whether it's divestment or strategic alignment, or taking two parts and making it one, external company or technology we look at everything and consider all the options. And I think that's what we've been doing over the last few months. That's where we want to be. Is here's our plan. Now it doesn't mean there won't be changes to that over time, but we want to get to the point where hey, look, there's an actionable plan, and this is our goal, is to create as much value as quickly as possible. I mean, when I started it, my goal was to sell the whole thing as soon as possible. But it's now the Iowa story. If you build it, they will come. And I'm an Iowa boy.
See, he wanted. I never heard him say this outside of this interview. So he wanted to sell it as quickly as he can. Quick flip. Then something changed. He's like, wait a minute, we actually have something here. At least I'm trying to think. I'm trying to put myself in his shoes. We have something. We have some potential here. I'm not going to sell yet.
So
interesting.
we're gonna have to make them, really want to pay a lot of money for it before they get a hold of it.
So follow up to Dan's question, and you probably can't answer this, but any interest from the big dogs in pharma? Has anybody come forward and asked about your assets and inquired about purchasing?
Yeah, you're right. I can't really answer that. It would all confidentiality, and I get in serious trouble with my lawyers and those companies. So, the
answer is yes. Based on the last interview, where he basically answered the same question, and this answer,
I will say that just off the cuff,
I think it's yes. He didn't tell me anything.
By
the way, we didn't have much of a pre-interview talk. It was more like, hey, how's it going? Congrats on the success with the social media community. You guys are doing something good. And then boom, because Travis got to go. He didn't have time to chit chat.
Informally, over the 15 years, yeah, we've had offers to purchase the company. But depending on what the situation was, we, of course, we're here now. So we've said no. And we've always been right on the other side of that. It was just low ball offers or just not the right timing. And you know how that works.
So he said there were lowball offers. Okay, so he's not. If he didn't think they actually have some potential, he would have taken the first lowball offer he got, right? So he knows there's a lot of potential here, and he's not waiting for. He's open to it, but it has to be a great offer. This is what I understand from this.
Well, you mentioned one company that I'm fairly familiar with, Neurocrine. They went through the same process in which they
Study Neurocrine, guys. If you guys want to see where kmph can go, but probably even more diverse than Neurocrine, because the stimulant use disorder, right? This has a lot of application. There's a huge need for that. Neurocrine really started out with tardive dyskinesia in people who take antipsychotics or in Parkinson's disease, Huntington's disease. So those were the two indications they had. kmph, I know it's a small company, it's early. They actually have more potential, in my opinion.
They had many lowball offers and turned them down, and still some offers today, to my understanding, still turning them down. So
Yeah.
AbbVie, for the longest time, AbbVie was rumored to be wanting to buy Neurocrine. And we know so much about Neurocrine because we owned the stock. I don't know if Chris still does, but I owned the stock, and our clients and some of our sites did studies with Neurocrine back in the day as well. They were actually doing studies before I even started in research, but they were one of my first clients, like as a research site.
You want to be right there with them, I assume.
Yeah, the nice thing for everybody but a select few of us is that you can buy and sell shares as you see fit, right? So it's always great to have that exit and that great positivity. But in this particular case, Neurocrine is a great example, right? It went from what, $1 billion company to $10 billion in 5-6 years. I mean, there's just a lot of examples now where.
And I remember when Neurocrine, when the drug got approved for tardive dyskinesia, the next question was, is this going to sell? Are they going to sell it? And they've been doing just fine.
Hey, Big Pharma has abandoned CNS, and other companies, and why not ChemPharm, can step in the shoes and say there's still unmet need. There's still people desperately in need of better treatments.
Lots of unmet need in central nervous system, including stimulant use disorder, substance use disorder. He's right. Big Pharma did seem to kind of abandon, and there's a huge opportunity there. And that now we got like things like psychedelic research too, that we're going to be in a booming era for CNS research.
For depression, Alzheimer's, idiopathic.
Small is the new big. Remember, I tell you that.
Hypersomnia, all these different unmet needs. And I think there's no reason why we can't be in that position.
Yeah, Neurocrine is I'm glad you guys both brought that up. That's a great case study for the
commercialization.
I talk about kmph. I mean, they're getting like 10% royalty. So here I talk about Aquestive Therapeutics, AQST. We actually covered them separately and realized, hey, they're getting 10% royalty off of Azstarys. Why? I wanted to find out like the backstory. What's going on with that? Is that like something that is just gonna maintain itself, or are you guys thinking of doing something about that? And then can you just share like a minute of like why that even occurred?
Yeah, sure. Actually, this goes way back to the genesis of ChemPharm, when Aquestive was actually Monosol RX. So they were, different name, kind of a similar business model at that point, making these thin strips, thin films for rapid dissolving oral delivery. When we had our first candidate, it was also an ADHD candidate, kind of a highly water soluble form of Vyvanse, new prodrug. And we approached them and said, we want to put this in a film. We think this would be a great approach. So we worked together. We got into an agreement where we co-developed this. And we eventually wanted to include SDX in that. We wanted, a methylphenidate. So, there was a lot of work and tech transfer that went in. They earned a royalty on, any of that ADHD. As you look at
commercialize their own drug, obviously that's
very. KMP, I mean, they're getting like 10%.
A similar business model at that point, making these thin strips, thin films for rapid dissolving oral delivery. When we had our first candidate, it was also an ADHD candidate, kind of a highly water soluble form of Vyvanse, new prodrug. And we approached them and said, we want to put this in a film. We think this would be a great approach. So we worked together. We got into an agreement where we co-developed this.
Okay, so they wanted to put the Vyvanse prodrug into a film, an oral film, and that's why they partner with Aquestive.
And, we eventually wanted to include SDX in that. We wanted, a methylphenidate. So, there was a lot of work and tech transfer that went in. They earned a royalty on, any of that ADHD work.
Even though they're not using any of their technology or anything, the fact that the knowledge transfer occurred, they managed to get a royalties on the platforms.
We sold the first one off to Shire. So, that one, they got a percent of that as well. But, that's something that's in place. Now, as far as like deciding whether or not we're going to buy the royalty, it's kind of up to both Aquestive and ChemPharm. I don't know if they're interested. We'll have to ask.
Yeah, they got a lot going on too. I mean, I was just surprised. Like, okay, I've been covering this company, and I see that they have a history. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, everybody knows everybody. Honestly,
yeah,
I mean, it's a small world in the pharmaceutical space, and they're a good company, good group of guys. I know Keith Kendall well, the CEO. So, Keith, if you want to talk, just give me a call.
Yeah, let's make this happen. Look, that would be amazing. Can people from the community please help set this up? Please. Keith, come on, give us a call. Let's do a group Zoom, a group podcast. That would drive Stock to its crazy.
A team who has done that. So it's always been a story that resonated with a lot of people. And then kind of once you get into it, I think, folks kind of root for us to do.
Yeah, so I asked him here why he thinks they do so well on social media as far as the community sentiment.
Do well. And so, that's what I believe. The truth could be something completely different.
Yeah.
I have a lot of faith in my team and the technology.
I think a lot of the reason is the indication, ADHD. I think it was the fact that there was at one point a lot of short interest in the stock and that whole Wall Street bets movement to like get behind this. But then the smarter investors who saw this were like, wait a minute, this is actually, there's something here. And then Travis is a genius, he came up with Vyvanse. I mean, now he's at the helm of this. He's going to do it again with Azstarys. He did it, got it approved. Sales need to come in now. And now he's going to do it with stimulant use disorder. So I think it's a combination of the right story, right CEO, right time,
technology,
and right indication.
And I hope that's, part of that story.
Okay. Well,
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, we're all big fans. So I thank you for answering these tough questions.
Yeah.
Final question. Okay, I promise.
I have one more.
All right, so two more. So you go yours first. Let's see what Chris said. I actually forgot here.
So this one you may want to cut out. I don't know, but
no, we don't cut out anything, Chris. You know better. No,
just because I don't understand how this works. So it's back to a previous question I had asked in regards to stock. So I assume with your initial public offering,
Chris wants to get more info on like the technical, the nitty gritty of like how to issue shares, how to dilute, how to do all this stock splits. Let's hear a little bit. And I might fast forward.
Just for an example, hypothetical, you release 10 million shares and say that's 20% of the value of the company. I assume something like that, right? With the SEC, is that correct? Something along those lines. But when you release more shares, is it the same exact numbers? Another 10 million for 20%, or can you change that? Can you?
Yeah. See, Chris it's not a dumb question. He's asking technical questions. The only thing is it's the CEO of a company on a recorded line. But these are not dumb questions. I doubt almost anybody knows the intricacies of how these things work.
You say we're going to release
Chris's opportunities. He's taking the chance right now to ask his questions.
10 million shares.
We only use it in the context of what I discussed, which is
But again, Travis comes out and says, look, we're no longer going to be, we don't have any foreseen dilution events occurring.
if there's something very attractive external to ChemPharm, as far as an asset or a company, that's when you want to implement something like that. Either you raise the money to purchase or you.
Yeah. So they have 130 million in cash, but he's saying if there's something that comes up where they need more money to buy something attractive that they think fits into their portfolio and their strategy, that's when they use those tools again.
Use some of those shares to acquire. And we're not talking about like anything of any size, right? We're looking at small opportunities. We're looking at developing our own candidates with our own capital. So hopefully that helps clarify a little bit.
One last follow-up question to that. So I assume you have to have clearance or at least a filing with the SEC every time you sell more shares, right?
All right, so let's get to the end here.
This great license and this great partnership. So in that particular,
I think the community, for the most part, like 80% of the comments got your back. So you've got something good. That I would say 99%, especially after we do our interviews. Like I noticed the sentiment starts dwindling a little. Look, kmph has been stuck in the market rut like everyone else. It's just been stagnating these last few months, like between $8.50 to $10, just very boring. All right, but when Travis does these kind of interviews, I honestly haven't watched him interview anywhere else. But when I interview him, and this is like my third or fourth interview now, I get renewed optimism in this company. And I own a few of this kmph shares. But I get renewed optimism. Travis has that about him. He's probably confident in this, in the prospects of kmph, and the potential prospects biotechs don't have, which is like this kind of social community, which is becoming increasingly important. So very important. If you get more retail investors interested, they squeeze the shorts. If there's short interest, big hedge funds we talked about earlier. If you get retail investors interested, what happens is you don't need to do as many dilutive measures because your market cap increases. Now you have more money at your disposal. Any final message for them?
Yeah, I mean, I greatly appreciate that community. I've been in those shoes. I've been on the other side. Everybody wants more information. We pass along everything we possibly can. We don't keep anything more than a few minutes, really. If it's anything of use to shareholders and potential shareholders, and
that might be part of the magic, right? He understands what the community wants to see and that they need to see things regularly and often and have good communication between corporate and investors.
And I appreciate their patience too. And we came through what is just like miraculous that we still exist, just with the debt we had and the financial restructure we had to do last year, get relisted. It's all been taken care of.
So that's enough of the reaction. Again, you basically saw the whole interview here along with my reactions to it. Let me know what you think. This is not financial advice. I owned kmph for like over a year since it first came on my radar, but I also own a whole bunch of other biotechs. I do think there's something special here with the community. I do think there's something special here with the stimulant use disorder, the potential there. And with Azstarys, if the sales start coming through with that, we got to start hearing more feedback. The initial feedback is good, but it's very small numbers. So as we hear more, this company becomes safer. In my opinion, they have a good leadership. And let me know what you think, guys, and we'll catch y'all later. Bye-bye.